Good evening, ghoulies and ghosties and long-leggedy beasties. This is Alex coming at you from the underworld, and welcome back to another episode of... Welcome back to the 5th video in my Halloween-themed book review series. Guess what, everyone? Halloween is just in a few days, so happy Halloween! And this last week has totally been nothing but pure love for myself because the weather has been colder, I've had rainier days, I've had colder days, and it's just been nothing but sweater weather with horror movies that are Halloween themed, books that are Halloween themed, and as I'm driving, I'm listening to nothing but Halloween themed music. So this is me enjoying every single second of the October month. And also, since Halloween is coming up, I've already gotten my pumpkins and I've carved their faces, and hopefully this year they will keep away anything and everything that's unwanted.
Hey, I have a surprise for you.
Well, what are you doing just standing there? Let me have it. Okay. A wish for pumpkin spice... Put the pumpkin spice latte on the ground and step away. I said put it on! What the hell? What the hell is wrong with this? What did you do?
Pumpkin spice latte. Say trick or treat. Pumpkin spice latte.
Ah! Die! 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 Ah! Ah! Oh, God! I got my latte! Oh. Now that we have that out of the way, on to this weekend's book. This weekend, I've decided to finish up the Sarrantonio Orangefield series, and this one was called Halloweenland. And unfortunately, unlike the first two books in this series, this one really left a lot to be desired. So, unfortunately, you're not going to have that great of a review for this book as what I had hoped. Like the previous books in this series, I decided to download Halloweenland on my e-reader. So it is available in ebook, audio, and print. So you do have a few different options there if you would like a copy. But let's go on and move on to the story. So with Halloweenland, we do have a new character who enters plot by the name of Marianne, and we discover early on that she is grief-struck because her husband has died and she wants to be with him. So she decides to do the ultimate thing, which is to attempt suicide by taking an overdose of pills, which honestly does nothing more than just land her in the hospital. But when she wakes up, she has her sister at her bedside, and she confides in her sister Janet that she believes she was spared from death because her husband's spirit came to her and rescued her and landed her in the safety of which she is currently in. Now, as nice as that sounds, and as hopeful as what that sounds, to have a loved one from beyond the grave come to you and rescue you, this is anything but. And the reason why I say this is because when Marianne wakes up, she's pregnant. And the kicker to this is her husband was sterile. So Janet does what any person would do, which was to have the hospital do a rape kit on Marianne, and the hospital explains that Marianne had not been raped, and so Detective Grant gets in on what's going down. And Detective Grant and Marianne, they begin conversing over the next few days to weeks, and as this pregnancy advances, They discover that it has been advancing at an accelerated speed, such as this all goes down around the beginning of October, and she's ready to give birth on Halloween. And when Detective Grant goes to her aid, he discovers on Halloween night as she's giving birth that the child that she has been carrying is the offspring of the Dark Lord who has been sending out Samhain to terrorize Orangefield over the last few centuries. Since this series has presented a number of ghosts, demons, and oddities that roam the night on Halloween, I thought it would be fun to elaborate on a few ways to prevent yourself from being visited by evil things on Halloween night. And since pumpkins are the key element of Orangefield, I would like to elaborate on the jack-o'-lantern. Also, I feel this is suitable because Sarrantonio nods to the subject with one of his characters being named Jack. Now, this famous symbol was brought to America by the Irish, and since the Irish didn't have pumpkins to carve, the original jack-o'-lantern was a turnip. But once the custom came to America, pumpkins were the go-to. And as far as the jack-o'-lantern being an object that scares away evil spirits, one speculation states it's the pumpkin's carved illuminated face that scares away evil entities. Other legends state that jack-o'-lanterns are used to scare away the infamous stingy Jack who had tricked the devil. One telling of this legend says Jack roams Halloween night as a lost soul holding a lit gourd to show his way, and his goal is to drag someone to hell. However, for whoever has a jack-o'-lantern lit on Halloween night, Jack will pass them by, assuming that they are also a lost soul who have the same goal as himself. Because of the protection a jack-o'-lantern can offer, it is customary to leave your jack-o'-lantern lit throughout Halloween night. And to make sure it doesn't go out, it is recommended that you watch your lit jack-o'-lantern at all times. Fun facts. What I find interesting about this trilogy is the confusion of what book comes first. And what I mean by that is I'm a part of multiple online book groups, and as I read the series, I spoke about what was going on between books 1, 2, and 3, but the response that I received was kind of to my surprise, as there was quite a few different people who believed that Halloween was actually the second book in the trilogy. Despite the book cover show what title comes first, I find it even more interesting that one fandom site states Hallows' Eve was published in 2004 and Halloween was published in 2006. If this is true, then Hallows' Eve is technically book 1 despite the cover saying otherwise. So to try and determine what came first, I referenced the copyright page in each of the ebooks I had, and it appears that each ebook was re-released in 2012, so no help there. Also, I would like to note that if you haven't guessed this already, this series is technically considered cosmic horror. And if you don't know what cosmic horror is, it is the fear and awe we comprehend when confronted by phenomena beyond our comprehension, whose scope extends beyond the narrow field of human affairs and boast of cosmic significance. Now that we have everything covered, it's time to move on to the spoiler section of this video. Pretty much, this is where I'm going to discuss some scenes and characters that could ruin the experience for you if you have never read this book before. So, if you would like to skip this segment, scroll down to the comment section of this video and you'll notice that I have a pinned comment that has a timestamp within it. If you were to click that timestamp, it will redirect you to the thoughts section of this video. You only have 17 seconds to do this, so ready, set, go. Now that everyone has had a chance to click away, I want to rant about one or two missed opportunities that Sarrantonio had here that could have made the series quite a bit better. Now, the thing is, I want to touch on Anna to begin with. And Anna is going to be Mary Ann's child that she births on Halloween. Now, prior to this birth, you have Samhain that goes to Detective Grant and says, okay, I have no power over you. I've been able to manipulate everyone else because they have shit for willpower, but you actually have a pretty damn good willpower, so therefore I cannot make you do anything to yourself or anyone else. But by the way, leave Marianne and Anna alone because this is going to be a very important role in life. So, Detective Grant at least has the good mind to go over to Marianne's place to see what's going on here, and of course he sees where Marianne is in labor and she's birthed this little hellion, which you can tell by how the child is described that this is a flat-out Rosemary's Baby. That's exactly what this is. And the thing is, Grant has the opportunity to kill the little bitch right then and there, because the thing is, no one knows he's there, no one is around to see what's going on, and Marianne dies in childbirth. So he could have easily killed it and got the hell out of there. I mean, the thing is, he's a detective. He knows how to get away with it, so why not do it? The child is the Antichrist. But no, Sarrantonio decides that he's just going to drop the ball and fast forward to 5 years later, and he's going to sum up what's happened over the last 5 years as nothing more than what feels like the Cliff Notes version of a bigger book. And truth be it, with what's gone on over these 5 years, Sarrantonio could have created a completely different novel out of this, but he doesn't. Instead, just sums it up within a Cliff Notes version. Now, another thing that pisses me off here is you have the character Reggie, who's from book 2, and I really liked Reggie. I felt that she had the potential to become this great big badass, but again, she suffers by Sarrantonio's synopsis roundabout description, which pretty much covers the last 5 years of her life. And again, I feel like we could have had so much more here to really elaborate on Reggie, to really build her up. But no, she's just brought in at the end of the book after being summed up just to kill the Antichrist. And the thing is, it's over and done with before we can even admire an epic battle. So I'm just left feeling cheated here. I really am. And the thing is, this was so bad that I double checked like the description of the book online, may it be by audio, by ebook, by Amazon, Goodreads, wherever. I checked to see if this was like an abridged version of the book. And from what I can tell, no, this is complete in its full format. So sorry, I just felt completely cheated there. Now, another thing that Sarrantonio does is he name drops to bring in more fandom, or try to bring in the fandom. And what I mean by this is there's a whole segment of the book where Detective Grant goes to Ireland to find out more about Samhain. And this is very unnecessary because the thing is, a lot of everything you need is right at your fingertips already. And also, at the same time, since this book was like written in 2007, and assuming that this is all taking place in 2007, I think everything could have easily been summed up by a phone call, an email, or hell, even using Skype. But no, you have Detective Grant who goes over to Ireland to talk with his friend named Malone, I believe his name was, where Malone then takes Detective Grant to meet another person, and this person is an author who writes about like Celtic folklore and everything. And pretty much, even though Detective Grant gets like more of a backstory on Samhain and the holiday and stuff like that in this segment, he goes back to America and really still hasn't gained much of anything. And so I'm like, why could you have not used this area to elaborate more on, oh, I don't know, Reggie or Anna? But is my ADD kicking in? Is that what this is? So now it's time that I bitch about Samhain, which is something I hate to do because he was one of my favorite villains up until this point. Now, the thing is with Samhain, it is revealed that he has amnesia in this book. And the thing is, this could have been a little bit more colorful had it been introduced earlier on in the series. Like, I could see something where all of a sudden he just starts killing people. Well, it technically doesn't kill anyone. He influences people to harm themselves or others. It could have been more interesting if he had just woken up earlier in the series with this amnesia, and this is the job he has granted to him, and he's struggling with that conflict throughout the series. But no, Sarrantonio just pulls a card out of his ass and says, hey, Samhain has amnesia. Alright, so let's go with it. Anyway, the thing is, with this, you have where Samhain then goes to Detective Grant and explains to Detective Grant that he has become a fan of the human race. He finds that the human race is a subject to admire and to also be something where it's worth saving the world for. I've been alive for about 35 years, and I do not buy for 1 second that the Lord of the Dead, amnesia or not, is going to feel like we are this noteworthy source in the universe where you have got to save the world because of us. I mean, seriously, haven't we screwed up this world enough? I mean, isn't it time for an apocalypse? I mean, hell, come on. Are you really that bored in the afterlife? Am I even that much of a nihilist where I feel that the Lord of the Dead is just being too much of a wuss here? I mean, come on. Seriously. You are a god or Lord, and you feel that we are interesting enough to save the world. All right. Kudos for being positive and optimistic. Now, the thing is, on top of this, you have where the world gets saved, the human race lives to see another day, and all of a sudden, guess what? Samhain's amnesia clears away, and it is revealed that he is actually Gabriel, and he has been under the Dark Lord's influence this whole time. Now, exactly when and how and where did the Dark Lord get a hold of Gabriel and give him amnesia so he could become the Lord of the Dead? It's never elaborated on. It's never said when this happens. It never says that, who knows, maybe Gabriel was just, lollygagging around in the afterlife one day and happened upon the Dark Lord and bam, was slipped a roofie or something. Doesn't say any of that. And so, once again, is this my ADD kicking in? Have I gotten the abridged version of a book? Please, someone elaborate. Halloweenland is my least favorite of the series, and truth be it, this is pretty bad considering it's the last book of the trilogy. Now, in the last video I filmed, I had mentioned that this was the series for Halloween. And at that time, I was midway into this book, and I had finished it after filming that second video. And at that time, from what I had read of the third book, there was still that kind of glimmer of Halloween there, but for the most part, by the time I was done with this, it had just fizzled out. The enjoyment of Orangefield, the whole Halloween style feel of the town, it just kind of vanished with this book. And I kept thinking that it was going to come back, but it never really did. And the thing is, there's a part of this book where the Detective Grant goes to a place called Halloweenland, and pretty much it's an amusement park that is Halloween themed. But the thing is, this was an opportunity where Sarrantonio could have elaborated so much more on what was in Halloweenland versus just kind of skimming through it. And for that, it was the final opportunity he had to really rekindle that Halloween feel that the first two books established, and he didn't do it. And as I had mentioned, there are so many missed opportunities in this book, and those I covered in the spoiler section of this video, and so I don't really want to cover those again here, so you have the chance to go back and watch that if you skipped it. But this one, it did not work for me. And overall, I felt like there was so much where he could have elaborated on it further, and we could have gained like another 2 or 3 books out of the subject, but he just zooms through everything. And it really felt like Sarrantonio was sick of writing the series, and he honestly just wanted to go on and end it and have it over and done with. Halloweenland is the prime example of when an author has great ideas, but he does not know how to execute those ideas. And if I were to recommend this book, I don't think I could do it without giving an explanation as to why or why not. So there's no short answer to this. The best way I can sum it up is, yes, if you do decide to read this book, here's the reason why. You've become invested in the series and you have just fallen in love with Sarrantonio's style, then yes, by all means, go in and read this book. Or you've read the first 2 books and you feel like you need answers, well, this book, even though it provides those answers, it really presents more questions that are never going to be answered. So if you're okay with that idea of having the answers of the first 2 books finally presented to you and having more questions presented, then yeah, go ahead. But the thing is, this book takes away the feel of Halloween that the first 2 books established. And so that's a major letdown, especially considering how well Sarrantonio was with setting in the first 2 books. Now, if I were to not recommend this, here's how I would present it. Pretty much, if you have read the first 2 books and you are not invested, you're not into Sarrantonio's style, you really don't care for any of the characters or anything of the such, you're just hanging on to it because it kind of feels a little bit like Halloween, the 3rd book is not going to be a saving grace whatsoever. So I guess it really depends on the eye of the beholder, because even though I did enjoy the first 2 books, and this one did kind of take me halfway with the answers I needed, and it did halfway entertain me, even though I just kind of felt like I wanted to give up on it, which is what Sarrantonio kind of felt like what he did. It's something where I honestly feel there are other books out there that can honor the season while being good with character development and providing strong character development and also having more of a solid storyline. And that's another thing that I want to touch on with why I'm so hesitant in recommending this with a solid yes or no. The thing is, it just feels awkward. It really, truly does. It feels awkward because, like, there's a 5-year gap here in between when Anna is born to when everything starts to go down. And it's just kind of summed up in a synopsis sense or a Cliff Note sense. And because of that, it just feels weird. It feels like the time frame doesn't fit. It feels like there's too much of a jump. And it feels like Sarrantonio is maybe going one direction here, and then all of a sudden he decides, bam, over here. So I guess at the end of the day, if you have something better to read, go for it. But at the same time, I want to stress, if you have a similar horror taste to myself, then you're probably going to feel this way about this book. However, I am a part of quite a few book groups online that are really strong within the horror fantasy community, and I know that Sarrantonio does have his fandom, so there is definitely a fandom group out there for this. Unfortunately, as far as the 3rd book goes, I'm not a part of that fandom. Okay, so on to the question segment of this video. The first question is, what is a Halloween book or series that you would recommend that would really make me feel like the season? And keep in mind that I love characters. Strong character development is a big part of why I read, so I want books that have some strong character development in it, not just characters who are being introduced and then bumped off for no reason, or there's just nothing but rambling where the characters really don't get their shine. So please keep that in mind. The second question I have is I would like for you to speak about a good time that you had at a Halloween theme park or a haunted house attraction. And I'm not talking about like a real haunted house where there's real ghosts and stuff in it, but you know, the typical Freddy, Jason, Leatherface haunted houses. And just feel free to elaborate on that in the comments section. And also, if the location still caters to the public every year, please leave the name of that location in the comments section as well, because I might want to go there one day. As far as myself goes, there was this one attraction that really impressed me back when I was in my late teens, early 20s, and it was called the Edge of Madness over in Calhoun, Louisiana, I think it was. But it was tons of fun. Unfortunately, it's a thing of the past. It doesn't exist anymore, or at least from my knowledge, it doesn't. But the thing is, you would pay about $50 a pop. It would get you in through the gates where they had like a stage with entertainment area. There was like concession stands. There was also 3 haunted houses, and you were able to go through all 3. The first one was like this haunted castle. Another one was a haunted asylum. And the final one was like this big voodoo plantation manor. And so each of the homes progressively got scarier the further you went. But some of my favorite memories take place in the second home, which was the haunted asylum. And the thing is, like with that house, you're constantly going up, but you don't realize you're going up until you're already on the top level. And they had this coffin up there where they would put you in the coffin, and when they closed the lid, the floor from under you would drop out and you would go down a slide, and then you'd have creatures chase you once you got on that lower level. And one of my fondest memories was when that happened, there was this whole maze area. And when you would go into the maze, you would get into the heart of it, and then all of the lights would go out, and you were stuck just feeling your way around. And you had Leatherface down in there, you had Michael Myers down in there, and they were chasing you and everything. And I had never screamed so much like a bitch in my entire life. And this was something that I would go to with friends and my parents, and my mom was completely terrified of a few of the characters there. And granted, they also use like real chainsaws and everything too. But this one fateful time we had gone, and there was a guy with a chainsaw who was like looking for his next victim. And we were outside in like the little entertainment area. And me being the loving son I am, I kind of waved at him and pointed out my mom, which he chased her in a circle around my dad until she busted her butt. But it was just a great time, and I honestly haven't been able to satisfy the adrenaline rush and the fun that that place provided for me. There's been a few times where it's come close, but nothing quite yet. So looking for recommendations there. Well, now that we have everything covered, it is time that I wrap it all up. And before I do, I want to thank Alicia Graves and Joseph Baylott for contributing to my Patreon account. Your contributions have been highly appreciated. They've gone to help with some of the props that you've seen in this video, actually. And I would like to also tell people, if you would like to contribute to my Patreon, all of the information is in the description section of this video. And if you contribute $5 a month, I will mention your name at the end of future videos. And so this is something that you don't have to do it, but if you would like to, you can. If you don't want to, that's fine. I'm still going to continue creating videos. Also, if you would like to hunt me down on social media, I do have links to my Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, all in the description section of this video, so hit me up. And as I had mentioned in the prior videos in regards to the Orangefield series, that since this series is so deeply based in depression and suicide, that I am including also information for suicide prevention hotlines in the description section. So if you are one of those people who are suffering from anxiety, depression, suicidal tendencies, please go in and make that first step to the road of wellness. Being someone who has attempted suicide in the past, I'm here to tell you that it does get better, and it's a long process. It really is, but it's worth it in the long run. Since Halloween is just a few days away, I would like to say happy Halloween, everyone. And when the 31st rolls around, be sure to live it up and party it up, but do it responsibly. If you decide to drink, definitely have a designated driver. We don't want any accidents on this joyful day. And also be sure to click my notifications bell and subscribe to this channel. And until next time, I hope everyone has sweet nightmares.